Hello and welcome to Dave and Viv Boardman's podcast, Real Voices of Happy Valley, in which we chat to people of the Calder Valley, concentrated so far on Hebden Bridge, but we will be getting out and about on all the things, looking at all the things going on from Todmorden up to Sarby Bridge and beyond. This is based on the fact that there's an awful lot of fascinating people getting up to quite interesting things in our lovely valley. If you want to make any suggestions about other people and issues we should be looking at, please find our Facebook page, Real Voices of Happy Valley, and make some suggestions, make some comments, hopefully nice comments about what you've heard so far. This one concentrates on a couple of book clubs that Viv is involved in, and involves her chatting with Pat Fairclough. So this week, I'm talking about book clubs.
Yes, I had a chat with Pat about the book group that we're in.
Yes, and so, well, we'll listen to your chat with Pat later, but tell us who Pat is.
Pat is a friend of quite long standing, getting on for 20 years now. And she's also a Labour councillor. And she used to be the mayor. She's been the mayor a couple of times.
Has she?
They do run out of people. No offence, Pat.
Yeah, sure.
Quite a few people have had a second go at it.
Oh, right. Well, fair enough. Still impressive, though.
Oh, yeah. And she was a good mayor.
Yeah.
Very conscientious.
Yeah, well, my mum lived here for a while before she passed on. She met the mayor of the time. I think it was Sue Press then, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? I don't know.
She was very excited to meet a mayor.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't realise that, as you just said, everybody seems to have their turn in a small town. Yeah. Anyway, neither here nor there. So, book clubs. You'll be talking to Pat later about the book club you've been in for donkey's years, but you've recently also joined a book club in the library.
Yes, it's great. It's entirely crime novels.
Oh, yes.
And it's called Dagger in the Library. And
sounds a bit Cluedo-esque.
If anybody's interested, it's the third Thursday of the month, but you can't just turn up. You go in and ask them for, say you would like to become involved. It doesn't cost anything. And they tell you where next month's books are, the ones for the next Dagger in the Library.
And this is Hebden Bridge Library?
This is in Hebden Bridge Library, yeah. They're usually upstairs, but if you speak to one of the library staff, they're lovely, and they'll tell you where to pick up the book from. And the way it works is you don't have to take the same novel. It's the author that's discussed. It's a bit lost in the midst of my memory because it's a year or so ago now, but it's to do with the Golden Dagger Awards in Harrogate for crime writers. So, various people have won it over the years, Ian Rankin, Val McDermott,
Oh, top-notch crime writers.
Top-notch crime writers, yeah. So I think they go from the short list of who's up for the Golden Dagger Awards and pick authors from that. So they have typically a stack or a stand of books by that author, and you just pick one that takes your fancy. And then on the third Thursday, we turn up and discuss it. And it doesn't matter that you've read different books, and they ask questions about what you thought of it. And things like, do you think this would make a good ITV crime series? Or would this, how arresting was it? Pardon the pun.
Arresting.
And people can say, well, this one didn't do it for me. And someone might say, well, this other one is great, So it's a nice introduction to different authors.
And it's quite an interesting way of doing it because, Rankin, for example, presumably most people would concentrate on Rebus.
Yeah.
And, the same characters sort of come into sort of most, if not all, Rebus books.
Yeah, and there's some... Rankin is considered high ranking.
You are punful today.
I know. Typically it's kind of how highly would you score this book on a scale of 1 to Ian Rankin? We all bow to him as the master of his craft. And sometimes there'll be a theme like authors from West Yorkshire who are on the short list, or women or whatever. And it's interesting because it makes you realise that there is a craft in writing a series of books with the same characters at the centre of them, and not having to go through it, but for each one to be a standalone one, so they don't have to go through exactly what the relationship is between everybody. That kind of comes out as you're going through them.
Yes, because I like sort of crime novels quite a lot, and been reading sort of Simon McLeave, The Snowdonia Murders.
Right, yeah,
and it's
that well-known hotbed of crime.
Yes, absolutely. There's lots of. It's amazing how many murders there are in Snowdonia over the course of a very few years. But there's also developing stories as it goes through. But in each novel, it's explained with the developing backstories, where it's up to and where they've come from. So you can read them in any order.
Yes, but there is quite a craft to that, isn't there? And I'm impressed with it.
Yeah, with McLeave, I've read the Snowdonia Murders in order. Because basically, by some fluke in a bookshop in Mould, I just got the first one.
Yeah. So it's great anyway. I would highly recommend it. I don't know if they do it in other libraries throughout Calderdale, but they definitely do it in Hebden Bridge.
Always worth going down to your local library and finding out.
And it's, yes, it is. And it's kind of a weird time it's on, because it's like too early to have had your tea. But it's 5:30 till 7, so, or thereabouts, an hour and a half. So you could have your tea afterwards, couldn't you, or go for a drink?
It's early enough to go and have a drink and a sandwich afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. So there we go. Let's have a listen to you having a chat with Pat about it then.
So I'm sitting here with Pat Fairclough, having a brew in our house, and we were going to talk about the book group. So, hi Pat.
Hello.
I was going to say welcome, but you're in your own house. Yeah.
Having a cup of tea on a sunny day in July.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it?
Oh, it's not July yet, sorry, it's June. I'm rushing ahead.
Yeah. Wishing June away.
Yeah, don't wish June away.
So the book group, which you started, I remember.
Started way back in 2006.
That's a long time, isn't it?
And it actually started as an idea in the Fox and Goose. There's lots of things starting in the Fox and Goose.
Yeah.
And it was a little motley crew to start with. I don't think you were there. This wasn't the first inaugural meeting. It was an idea. And there were two men there as well on that particular evening. One was called Greg.
Yeah, I was there.
Oh, you were there.
Because it was after that, no offence any men who are listening, but it was after that we decided we would be women only, wasn't it? Because...
Well, yeah, but that was kind of accidental, because when we decided to have the first meeting in 2 weeks hence, and I picked the book only because my sister had bought me a book for Christmas, and it was The Life of Pi.
Yeah.
And I hadn't got round to reading it, and when I looked at the title and the resume of it, I thought, do I really want to read a book about a tiger on a boat?
And we're so glad you did.
I thought, I could read it with a group of people. So if you remember that night, I think 8 women turned up, but so we didn't actually exclude the men, but they didn't come to the meeting. So from that moment onwards, we just thought we'd carry on as we were.
Yeah. That's right, but I do remember at that first one there was a bit of unnecessary mansplaining going on, wasn't there?
They wanted to choose every book forever, didn't they?
Yeah, and we thought, oh well, and because it was kind of organic, wasn't it? It wasn't that we went out looking for people to join it.
No,
we were all friends already.
Yes, the original ones were right from the start. We had Julie right from the start. We had Ellen from the start. We had somebody called Margaret Biller who we've lost contact with. Who else was with us originally? There
was Louise.
Oh, Louise, who lived opposite me. Here, Louise.
Yeah.
And
Debs,
Margaret
maybe.
Boyle.
Yeah.
Debs wasn't at the original one. She came along because she was Margaret Boyle's friend, I remember.
Right, okay.
But we've gathered members, haven't we?
Yeah.
As the Rolling Stones gather lots. We've always kept to roughly 12 members.
Yeah, and there's a kind of a core who've been there from the start.
I could say cult then.
Well, like the Sugar Babes, we've had that many members. But then some people came along for a couple of weeks and either moved away or decided it wasn't for them. There was 2 who had a spectacular falling out, but I'm not sure we should talk about that.
We won't talk about that.
And neither of them came back.
Stayed.
No. But, we still got, of the original ones, there's you, me, Julie, Ellen, and that's
Jean joined about 2 months later.
Yeah,
she was introduced to me by
still an old timer. But yeah, I'd say there's 5 or 6 who've been there all along. And
that was 2006, so you've just reminded me that we've been going for 17 years.
Yeah, it's a long time, isn't it?
That's very long standing for a book group. My sister joined a book group in Wales because she asked me for a list of books that we'd read. So I remember I'd written down, I had about 30 written down, and she said, "Well, thanks for that, Pat." And then a few months later, she got in touch. It only lasted for 3 meetings.
Did it?
They had a huge fallout after the third book or something. Well, not a fallout, but it wasn't working.
But the format of ours is that we meet in each other's houses, don't we? Once a month.
Yes, we have a different host, don't we, every month?
Yeah.
And a different buffet.
Yes. It was starting to get like a cross between Loose Women and Come Dine With Me, wasn't it?
Or come drink with me sometimes.
Well, yes. And it still is to an extent, but it's nice. You put on a little bit of a spread.
It's just brilliant.
And all talk about the book. Yeah.
We've admired one another's houses, gardens and pets as well.
And seen each other through all kinds of traumas. And
sometimes it's more like an encounter group than a book group, isn't it?
But there is something about reading which does spark off discussions, because there'll be something where you think, oh, that happened to me, or that happened to a friend of mine,
because we read Elizabeth is Missing, didn't we? That we talked about dementia, and then the one that got the most discussions afterwards was what was it called? The Ian McEwan one about
the Children Act.
Children Act.
Yes, that was excellent, wasn't it?
I remember we talked about that for quite a long time. And I think the one, I've got written this in my diary because I keep a diary, the one that we talked about most when we read The Room by Emma Donoghue, you remember?
Yes, just Room, wasn't it?
Room, that's right.
Yeah, that was brilliant.
We talked a lot about that.
I went to see the film of that at Bradford, after we'd read it.
Yes, I saw the film.
And, but we went into the wrong one. And there was a man wrestling.
Not the wrong room.
The wrong bit of the cinema. And there was, what's he called, Matt Damon or Leonardo DiCaprio, one of that generation of actors, wrestling with a polar bear. I thought, I'm sure this wasn't.
This is a mixture of Life and Pi and Room together.
It was The Revenant, it was called, and I'm saying today,
oh gosh, I remember that coming out, and I decided I would not watch it.
Well, I saw a little bit of it until I realised this isn't it. Anyway, luckily The Room hadn't started yet, so we went to see that.
If you remember, for the first year, to get us on track, we decided just to read books that had been in the Booker Prize shortlist or had won the Booker Prize.
Yeah,
that's because The Life of Pi, of course, did, and Room, and so that kept us on track.
Yeah.
But since then, we've branched off into detective novels.
I mean, it was as good a way as any to start, and I think partly because we were reluctant to recommend anything ourselves
So
in case everyone hated it.
it was good to have that list, wasn't it?
So it was good to have that, but then since then, yeah, and now we get them from a list in the library of all the books that they've got in, don't we? And we've ticked off ones that we liked.
Yeah, because after many years of only having 3 or 4 books circulating for the months.
That's right, yeah.
And my shed being used as the exchange for said books. So if I ever had friends round, they'd say, Pat, there are women that keep coming in and out of your shed. Oh, it's okay. They're just picking up books. It's okay.
It's the book depository. But it was a nice system, and it worked because you're fairly central to where everyone is, you know. So yeah, it's. But we still do it with things to lend.
But the system we've got now is good, isn't it? Because of Julie being a librarian, and I don't know why we never thought of it before. No. She can get the 12 copies, can't she? So we've each got a copy at last.
Yeah.
Of the book.
Yeah, that's right.
And we all she sent us a very long list, didn't she, of the books that were available. And we all chose our six favourites from that list. So we're working our way through that.
Yeah.
So that's also working.
Yes, I know. So things evolve, don't they? But it's good. And so do you have a favourite? I know you said Room was one of the ones we talked about the most, as was Elizabeth is Missing. But, I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot, and it's so hard to choose, isn't it?
Well, it's got to be The Life of Pi, because I think that was the book. I think if we'd not chosen, this might be fanciful on my part, but I think because we chose the most perfect book as our first book, and we all loved it, didn't we? We talked about it, and it bonded us together with that book. And also, this is, by the way, but to do with you going to see a film, don't like to see films of books that I've read, because usually they're awful, aren't they? But The Life of Pi film was as good as the book, I thought. So that was a general all-round winner, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The second book we read, I remember that too, was Ishiguro's When We Were Orphans.
Oh, yes.
And I championed that book, and I loved it. It was another Booker Prize winner, and quite a few people didn't like it or didn't get on with it. But that was also good, because it's good when you have a book that divides the group into 2 halves.
Yeah, yeah. I know. And one of the things I liked was there was an author. It sounds impossible now that I'd never heard of her, but I hadn't. And we read a book by her. It was Rose Tremaine. And I loved it. It was The Road Home. And I thought that's one of the best things I've ever read. So then, whenever I went into a charity shop, I looked out for Rose Tremaine. And all her books are very different from each other. But it's such a joy to discover an author.
Yes, you just get introduced, don't you? You get introduced to an author and you think, gosh, I've never heard of this person. And she's written 8 other books, and then you've got these 8 books to go hunting for.
And it's so exciting.
Like you. I also look for them in charity shops.
Yeah, yeah.
And also my favourite author, apart from Charles Dickens, is Anne Tyler.
Yes, so you introduced me to her as well.
So we read Breathing Lessons. I remember that. I remember reading that, and we've read a few more of hers, haven't we?
Yeah,
and people were a bit dismissive at first, and then suddenly everybody's realised just how wonderful she is.
Yes, I know people can be dismissive because she writes of domestic
about
and everyday stuff
it's
and
also
families.
About everything,
but it's about life and philosophy. It's just fantastic. And like my Dave only ever reads biographies, usually of rock singers, and detective novels. So I went back and said something to him that we'd said after reading Anne Tyler. You'd said, don't her characters have interesting jobs? And so I said this to Dave, and he said, what do you mean? Surely the job is either a criminal or a policeman or a coroner.
Has he read any Anne Tyler?
No. I've offered to, I've said, have a read of that, it's good, but...
Because my son Dominic...
It's not really taken
is a reader, and every time he comes to us, he's all the Anne Tyler books. So he read a book by Anne Tyler about 5 years ago, the one where his wife has died, It's on my shelf over there. I'll come back with. And he sent me a message. He just thought it was wonderful. So I thought it was great that men can also read.
Yes. Well,
books by women.
My friend Laura, who she has a daughter who lives in Baltimore, and her husband said he was going to read Rat and Tyler because that's where
they're all in Baltimore,
based.
aren't they?
And he said, just to give me an idea of what the place is like. And he's read all of them since. He's absolutely obsessed with them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, we all have different reasons.
We mustn't forget one of our most memorable book group meetings. I'm looking at you now because you were staying in Manchester for 6 months when you were flooded.
Right. Yeah.
And we all came over on the train and
we were met in a borrowed flat.
We met in Tiger.
We did, yeah.
And instead of having a book group, we had a karaoke session in Tiger.
That was brilliant, wasn't it?
And that was just wonderful.
It was just so left field, wasn't it? We'd thought
we've got to do that again.
Yeah, because we'd gone there, had something to eat, and I'd asked them if there was anywhere we could go and talk privately about
because they had the rooms upstairs.
Yeah, and said, well, we've got karaoke rooms upstase.
And we all went,
and I said, rather sniffily, well, we're not going to be using that.
We'll not be doing that.
But sure enough,
there we were.
5 minutes.
I will survive.
I will survive as belting out.
We all had to be dragged out of the booths one by one because we all wanted to do another song.
Yeah, that was really memorable, and I have no idea what book we were supposed to be talking about.
Was that after 20...
I can tell you exactly.
Not the 2015
no,
it was 2012, wasn't it?
2012, yeah. So that's 11 years
Let's
ago.
do that again.
Yes, I don't want to be flooded again.
No, we don't want the flood, but we do want the karaoke. We don't have to go to Tiger to find a karaoke lounge, so do we?
But it was ideal because it was private. You know, it wasn't like we were standing up in front of a full pub belting it out. You know, but it was like, you know, where we could all sit round.
Oh, I loved that night.
It was great. And you managed to get some good deals on the train, didn't you?
We did.
Block booking
and in those days, I don't think Tiger is there now, but you remember you could get 2-for-1 meals and all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
It was a very cheap night as well.
Yes, it was good. All in all, it was fantastic. So, yes, so we've had some really good get-togethers.
Yeah, and each Christmas we have a meal together, don't we? When we have a surprise Santa.
Yes, a secret Santa.
Secret Santa, but a surprise Santa as well.
Yeah.
And one year it was Julie's friend, wasn't it, who'd not stayed with us, but she brought us all a book. I remember that because she knew somebody, didn't she, that could get lots of books. So she gave us all a wrapped up book. That was really nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a fantastic 17 years, and I think we've gone for another 17 years.
Oh,
we'll be very old
hope so. Because, I mean, I'll be moving to Todd soon from Hebden Bridge.
But we have already got a member.
We've already got a member there.
We've got a member where does Jenny live? She lives in Oxenhope.
Yeah.
Lots of people in Mythe and Royd.
Yeah.
There might be only me left in Hebden Bridge soon.
Yeah, so that, long may it continue.
Yes, here's to the next 17 years.
Yes, let's meet over a book and a bottle of wine soon.
Yes,
all right.
Once it's read.
Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Judy. I think you said Judy then. Thank you to the book group and thank you to Viv.
Yeah, long may it continue.